Hello Rebrand gang, and welcome to episode 38 of Rebrand Everything, the weekly graphic design show where I show you just a small part of the rebranding process, which is the logo design stage. This week we're going to be redesigning the Post-it Notes logo. Thanks to Tom for submitting this idea over at rebrandeverything.com. Let's go. So the current Post-it Notes logo looks like this. So as you can see, it uses like an illustration of their main selling product, which is obviously the Post-it note, and they use that as a background for the strong, big, bold word mark that they use. This is one of them logos that's been around forever, and you kind of eyes just glaze over it. You sort of see the whole product is the logo sort of thing. So the logo just seems to sort of go kind of unnoticed, but also is very recognizable. It's hard to explain. But after zooming in on it and spending a little bit of time looking at it, I think I've seen some things that I feel like could be refined. One of them things is that the logo has the word brand written underneath Post-it. The only reason I can think that they might include that is because perhaps they've had a meeting where they said we're known only for Post-it notes, but we've got all these other products, so maybe we'll include the word brand so it doesn't just feel like we're just Post-it notes. Perhaps they're thinking it's a good way of indicating that they do have other products. However, for me, it feels a little bit unnecessary. It's pretty obvious that it's a brand because it just is, and also the size of the word brand in comparison to the Post-it means that when it's used on the website it's barely visible anyway. So I'm definitely not going to be scared of dropping the word brand out of the logo for these options that I'm going to create. Also, if they have had this meeting that I just pretty much made up where they're thinking about selling other products and want to sort of push them, it's a little bit crazy that they've got actual Post-it notes in the background of their logo. I am in two minds about this though. In one way, it is their thing, it is their main product, it is the main thing that they're known for, and it would be kind of crazy to drop it and sort of cut themselves away from that. But then at the same time, it is also a little bit crazy, and it's kind of like a car company putting their best-selling car in the logo. It's just not something you do, it's just total madness. Right then, with all that said, I think it's time we get sketching out some ideas. So at the sketching stage, a lot of my ideas were playing with the idea of creating something that's a little bit more abstract while still indicating their type of like stationery products. So I was looking at things like creating an iconic sort of side profile of the stack of Post-it notes, and then also looking at other things that sort of like indicate like paper and stuff like that with like folded over corners. And I was also looking at some other more simple ideas like taking the current icon and then just using that alongside the word mark instead of behind it, just to remove some of that sort of confusion and just like separate it and ultimately make it clearer to read. I also started thinking about an idea where a handwritten style could work, as it then sort of ties in with all of their products and instead of just the actual Post-it note themselves, because obviously with stationery it kind of is like handwritten stuff like that. But I'm not sure how that will work. And also, I don't know why, but I'm going through this little sort of isometric mindset at the moment, and I quite like this idea of the P laying down and then like it's being stacked up. So the stack of the P's is sort of indicating their main product, which is obviously the stack of notes, but it's not too descriptive that it makes their logo sort of irrelevant when positioned on other products. My plan is to create a logo using just the words Post-it, and then also work in a way to include the product names such as notes, but in a way that can be changed easily without ruining the look of the logo. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm going to build like a system for underneath the logo or next to the logo that can incorporate short and long product names. Please don't forget to press like if you like this vid, it really helps the channel out, thanks. Also, if you have Instagram, add me at @rebrandeverything. I just post random like stories, some design tips, pictures of the dog, just random stuff, but it's all good fun. So for our first option this week, I thought a good way to start would be by taking the elements of the current logo and just rework them into something a little bit cleaner. I quite like the typography, it looks good, it looks timeless, so I thought there was no need to mess around with that, so I just left it as it is. And then I think it also looks better now that it's not being crowded by the icon behind it. As I'd committed on this option to keeping the Post-it note icon, I thought that I could use the iconic Post-it note colours, the four like main key colours, to give the logo just a little bit more substance and make it like stand out a bit more maybe. In terms of actual positioning of the icon in comparison to the text, I put the icon in the top right in the end, and then put the product name underneath, left aligned to the actual logo. And it seems like this layout will work well on the website header because obviously it's sort of landscape, so it should fit and everything should be big enough to be legible without the logo having to be absolutely massive. And then also it'll probably hold up well on the products too, because it's not super wide and it's a square like packaging on the front of their main product. I feel like that'll just be fine. And also the good thing about the fact we've got a lot of room to the right hand side of the word notes is that when they need a longer product name under there, we've got a lot of room to just have more words in there before we have to start thinking about using a condensed font or bringing down the text size for that. So it's quite adaptable and quite flexible.
2.
So for option 2, I wanted to scratch this isometric itch that I've been having. I wanted to try lots of things quickly, so I laid out lots of different fonts with my P, all different styles, all different fonts, just to see what would work. And then I went into the Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel menu, and then within here you've got this preset called Isometric Top, which sorts out all the angles for you, and I just used that and it looked cool. So even though I was using this 3D effect, I didn't actually want any sort of like depth on it. And then also turn off the shading, and it just lets it keep that main colour, and then all it's done is sort of skewed it perfectly, which is all I want for this. At first I didn't really like the look of it, and for some reason I couldn't work out why, but then everything looked a lot more clean and I sort of got in my zone a bit more when I just realised that I needed to add a white stroke onto the letter to give that separation for the stack. At this point I was focusing mainly on the inside, like the cutout part of the P, as I wanted to make sure that anything that was showing in there from the layers behind was big enough to actually warrant being there. I don't like it when there's like a tiny little sliver and it just looks sort of amateur and unconsidered. I decided to play around with the colours as well, so to create something a little bit more playful and that had a little bit more life than just solid black. So I made an inverted palette and a complementary palette using the feature in the colour menu. From this I thought that the blue would work really well alongside like complementing the yellow, but I didn't use the colour that it actually offered me. I made it a little bit darker just to make it stronger, just to make sure it's easy to read and sort of really stands out on that packaging. In the end I couldn't actually decide what logo to use because I liked the one with the gradient stack, so it's like the lightest one at the top going down to the darker, but then I also liked it with the 4 sort of post-it note colours, but you'll have to wait till the end of the video to find out which one I actually decided on in the end.
3.
So for option 3, my first idea was to show like a simplified stack of notes, so just having like basically 4 lines underneath each other, somehow showing the corner as well. But then when I was doing this, it just kind of looked like a bog standard like layers icon that you see in like these apps and stuff. And it was just looking boring. It didn't really translate too well from my mind to the page. So I decided to flip the idea around and draw out an icon that was like a front-on note but being peeled from the pad. So kind of not abstract, but not exactly realistic either, just super simplified version of it. It was actually surprisingly difficult to get the peeled corner looking right. I think shading would help if it was an illustration, and obviously you could sort of play with that. But as I wanted to keep it like logo style, I just had to keep adjusting the shapes until it was clear what was kind of going on. The resulting logo was quite like hard and quite spiky. I didn't round any of the corners or anything like that. So then because of that I needed a font to match up. I found this font called Bliss, which seemed to fit quite nicely. It had some of them sharp edges and just a little bit of angularness to it. I'm not sure if angularness is a word, but I just said it anyway. And with a little bit of adjustment to this, I thought it sat pretty well next to the icon.
4.
Okay then, so basically, because I had folded corners in my mind after creating option 3, option 4 turned into another similar idea, but I thought it worked well enough in the end to make it another option. At the sketching stage, I'd drawn out a peeled corner on the word post, but I thought it was a little bit much to sort of include that on the actual word mark, so I decided to create an icon from the P, which were then put inside this black box. The reason for the black box on this option was purely for sort of presence and clarity on the packaging. Over time, I think that black square with the P inside would become recognised as the Post-it Note logo. It just looks strong, and it just looks sort of like it could have been designed like yesterday or today, or it could have been designed in the 80s or 50s or whatever. It just looks sort of like timeless and just sort of like strong. I just liked it. I think this icon is descriptive enough without being overly focused on the single product. It kind of says stationery because of the folded corner. Because, as I mentioned earlier, Post-it have other products, I didn't want to focus too much solely on that one square note.
5.
So for option 5, I wanted to create something very adaptable that didn't pigeonhole the branding into any sort of singular product. I started with some italic text, which I then worked out the slant on by just drawing a line, rotating it and just seeing what the actual rotation was, and then like reverse rotating the text so it kind of looks like it's just running uphill then. I kind of liked the idea that in the future you could sort of design some offbeat designs in line with this style, so I developed the word note, which can sit beneath and easily change if a longer product name is required, and I just kind of like that slanty up thing. I can just imagine that on the website. You could just change the header to sort of be at an angle and stuff like that. I just thought it might be quite cool looking quite like a new look. Colour-wise, I ended up landing on this two-tone yellow. The yellow on black started reminding me a little bit too much of the BIC logo. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And although this option is simple, I do feel like it could give a good disruptive look to the product labels. So it's noticeable that something's changed sort of to your average customer, but without making them feel like they're buying a different product. Okay then, Rebrand gang, so just before I show you them final options, I just want to remind you to press the little button up here and vote for your favourite, and then head straight down to the comments below and let me know why that was your favourite. If you haven't done so already, please press like on this video, press subscribe if you want videos like this every single week, and remember to put the bell on so you get a notification every time I upload. If you have a rebrand idea that you'd like me to have a look at, visit rebrandeverything.com, fill out the form, and I'll add that to my ever-growing list. Okay then, Rebrand gang, let's see them final options.